Okay, there we go. We're live now. So we had a couple of technical difficulties, everybody, but we are now here with the most aggressive National Hurricane Center forecast of all time for storm surge. The National Hurricane Center is officially expecting 15 to 20 feet of storm surge for the Big Bend of Florida, with a Category 4 Hurricane Helene at landfall. Again, 15 to 20 feet of storm surge from the Suwannee River back over to Carabel. They didn't even have like a graphic made for that. This is, again, the highest forecasted storm surge total from the National Hurricane Center ever in the history of its existence. 20 feet of storm surge. Ian's max storm surge was 18 feet. All right, we had Idalia last year, which the storm surge with that was enhanced by a supermoon. The highest storm surge with that was around 15 feet. We are forecasting well beyond that, up to 20 feet of storm surge in the Big Bend of Florida, over a huge area, by the way, again, a very large area. So, again, I don't know exactly how many evacuation orders are in effect, but if you are under an evacuation order, you need to get out of there now. The system is just now making its way up properly into the eastern Gulf of Mexico here, and it's going to continue to head that way and again make landfall here, likely as a Category 4 hurricane. So you can see that we're expecting storm surge of some sort pretty much across the entire state of Florida. Tampa Bay, 5 to 8 feet. We've got Indian Pass at about 6 to 10 feet. We're expecting about 1 to 3 feet for the Keys. We've got about 3 to 5 feet for Charlotte Harbor, and again, obviously the main headline there being the 15 to 20 feet. Again, that is going to be devastating. We haven't really seen anything like that before in the Big Bend of Florida, at least not within the past 100 years or so. So, anyway, we are joined here by Mr. Storm.
What's up, guys?
And again, the National Hurricane Center is now forecasting a Category 4 Hurricane Helene. As you can see, tomorrow afternoon, we're expecting a Category 4, which, by the way, that is a big deal, because right now, Helene is a Category 1. It is going to jump 3 categories in the next 24 hours, alright? By later tonight, we're expecting this to be a Category 2. Tomorrow morning, Cat 3, and then tomorrow afternoon, a Category 4. And who knows, if this undergoes serious rapid intensification, by tomorrow evening, it could even be a Category 5, and we are now expecting a landfall right near Apalachicola and Tallahassee in the western part of the Big Bend of Florida. Again, we've got hurricane warnings going further north than I think I've really ever seen before. I don't think I've ever seen a hurricane warning all the way into Macon, Georgia, but there we go. Again, hurricane warnings. We've got storm surge warnings. We've got everything. We got a lot to talk about. I'm going to go ahead and pull up stream chat. Again, we have got a long stream ahead of us, but let me go ahead and get that up here for you guys. Again, sorry to have a thumbnail for this stream. Things were just not working in my favor. Jeez Louise. What's up, everybody? Good to see the usual crowd back in here again. Again, the most aggressive storm surge forecast for a hurricane ever in the history of the National Hurricane Center's forecasting. So that's a big deal, but we're also going to be talking about a serious tornado threat with this system and more. So speaking of the tornado threat, tomorrow we have ourselves an enhanced risk of severe weather driven by a tornado threat here for portions of Georgia and South Carolina. Right now it's a 10%. I wouldn't be surprised to see this turn into a 10% hatched risk. I doubt we're going to see a 15% risk. Again, that would lead to a moderate risk of severe weather. Again, I doubt it. Can't completely rule it out, but I think they're going to stick with the 10% most likely, again, for portions of southeastern Georgia and extreme southern South Carolina. So, again, that is a big deal. Again, we're expecting potentially a full-on tornado outbreak from this. And, again, Beryl and Debbie both had some extreme tornado outbreaks with them. Francine was a little bit more tame, but Helene, looks like it's going to be a pretty big deal. And, again, usually the tornado threat stays east of the eye wall, and again, that's happening this time around. The main tornado threat corridor is going to be in parts of Georgia and South Carolina. So again, everybody just now tuning in, let me know where you're watching from. Again, we've got ourselves a long forecast ahead of us. We can go ahead and take a look at the GFS model here. All right, we got the 18Z run is not out yet, but we do have the 12Z run of the GFS, and it's showing a very aggressive forecast here, but not quite as aggressive as the NHC, honestly, I'd argue. And also, the GFS has this making landfall further east than the National Hurricane Center. Again, you can see a 957 millibar low pressure center there. Again, that would be likely a Category 3 to a Category 4 hurricane, likely a Category 3. And again, they have it pushed a little little bit further to the east in kind of the central Big Bend of Florida rather than in the western part. So that would be a pretty big deal. Again, this is kind of the area where Idalia made landfall, right? We had Debbie make landfall here not too long ago, but they're saying it's going to track northwestward and head into the Midwest, bringing some serious rain to my area. So the European model here, Europeans being a little bit less aggressive. Actually, let me correct myself. It's being a little bit more aggressive. A 954 millibar low pressure center landfall there. Again, that's likely around a low-end Category 4 hurricane, and they have this thing remaining at least Category 1 hurricane strength, like all the way into, northern Georgia and southern Tennessee. The Canadian model here, usually the least reliable of the big three when it comes to hurricane forecasting, is actually showing quite a weak hurricane. This would be like a Category 2 hurricane, 970 millibar landfall there in the Big Bend of Florida once again. Again, I think it's going to be quite a bit stronger than that. So, Mr. Storm, we haven't really heard much from you yet. What are your thoughts on this? What kind of, what category do you think this is going to make landfall as? What do you think will be the biggest problem with Helene? Just what are your thoughts on this?
Yeah, so obviously from the National Hurricane Center, big update coming in tonight. I think that while the storm threads the needle between the Yucatan Peninsula and western Cuba, I think that everything depends on how much the storm strengthens as of right now. So around now, when you look at satellite, if you see a core developing, if you start to see potentially even an eye developing, that's a big sign that this hurricane could definitely be a little bit stronger than initially anticipated. So that's why we saw that upgrade to Cat 4, because this is going to sit over the Gulf of Mexico for still quite a few hours here. And also, I do think that the push of the storm surge is really due to the fact that if you look at other models and the National Hurricane Center, there is a little bit of a trend for the storm moving a little bit farther west. Now, that would open up the Big Bend of Florida to allow those outer bands and also the outer core of the hurricane to push those waves into the Big Bend of Florida. So that's why we have that 15 to 20 foot storm surge forecast. That is an incredible storm surge. You can't survive that. That is worse than Ian. 20 feet. Obviously, it's not expected to have 20 feet. That's the high end amount. But the forecast right now is that the worst amount of storm surge that we're going to see is around 15 to 20 feet. So I'd say right now, anybody that's under hurricane warning in Florida should seriously consider evacuating. But I would say right now, if you're anywhere inside the National Hurricane Center, cannot evacuate. If you're in Florida, all right. If you're in Georgia, maybe not. But I think that also just with the amount of moisture that this thing is going to be pulling up, we talked about how this thing is going to have a huge moisture return. It's a very, very big system. This is not a compact hurricane. There's been Category 4 hurricanes in the past that have been very compact, not necessarily meaning that they're stronger hurricanes, but this one is a beast. This is going to be a massive hurricane. That's why we have tropical storm warnings so far down the coastline. So you're going to see a big wind field with the system. A lot of areas are going to become impacted by the system. But really, these winds are going to be a lot stronger than initially anticipated. Because remember, National Hurricane Center first had this as a Category 2 hurricane. Now we're up to a Category 4. So big difference there. And I'm afraid to say this, but unfortunately, we could seriously have an even more aggressive forecast, I think, from the National Hurricane Center in the coming hours. So, once again, all depends, personally to me, it all depends on what the storm is going to do over the next 5 to 8 hours or so. And I think that's when we're going to really see the National Hurricane Center's final word on this system. But I think rapid intensification is definitely going to begin shortly. Category 5, in my opinion, it's not out of sight. I think it's unlikely at this point. But definitely a dangerous system, life-threatening conditions, catastrophic storm surge, just nothing that you want to mess around with.
Yeah, for sure. The only thing, that was great, everything that you said. The only thing that I would correct is you said that people in the cone should evacuate. I'm going to go way further and say that pretty much everybody on the west coast of Florida, Tampa northward, should get out of there, because even in Tampa, we're expecting 5 to 8 feet of storm surge. And again, whenever you move further up the coast here, all right, especially whenever we get closer to that cone of uncertainty, again, the newest storm surge warnings say 16 to 20 feet. And this is, again, I'm just going to read this tag. I don't think I've ever seen this tag. We are expecting life-threatening and historic, yes, they use the word historic in this warning, historic storm surge possible, even outside of the direct cone of uncertainty here. So, again, this is a big deal. Again, potential impacts are devastating to catastrophic structural damage to structural damage to sturdy buildings, some with complete roof and wall failures, complete destruction of mobile homes, damage greatly accentuated by large airborne projectiles. Locations may be uninhabitable for weeks or months. Weeks or months. That is, again, the most aggressive thing I've ever seen from the National Hurricane Center. Numerous large trees snapped or uprooted, along with fences and roadway signs blown over. Many roads impassable from large debris and more within urban or heavily wooded areas. Many bridges, causeways, and access routes impassable. Widespread power and communication outages. And again, that is just the storm surge. That is one of the many aspects that we're going to see from this hurricane that is going to be extremely deadly. Alright, we are also talking about a very significant amount of rain. We went over the tornado threat. What we didn't go over is the excessive rainfall outlook. We have got ourselves a major problem on our hands. We've got ourselves tomorrow at a high risk for flash flooding in 2 spots, not just 1, but 2. This is a double high risk of flash flooding. We got a high risk of flash flooding for parts of the Big Bend of Florida back into southwest Georgia and extreme southeastern Alabama. And we've also got a high risk of flash flooding for portions of extreme eastern Tennessee, extreme western North Carolina, extreme western South Carolina, and northeastern Georgia there. Again, a double high risk of flash flooding. That's a massive deal. And then even going into Friday, we've got a moderate risk, which is still a big deal. We got a moderate risk going out for parts of Appalachia there. So, again, very huge problem there. So we haven't talked much about the wind threat, but that's also going to be another significant thing, although usually the wind threat actually ends up being one of the more minor headlines from hurricanes. I think this time around it's going to be a very big deal. Again, not a high end, but a Category 4 hurricane now forecasted from the National Hurricane Center. Sustained winds of 130, gusts up to 160. And again, that's not even all the way up to landfall. If it strengthens all the way up to landfall, which it could do, things will get even worse. Again, the wind impacts also, not only the storm surge impacts, but the wind impacts are also labeled as devastating to catastrophic. The flooding rainfall impacts are also labeled as devastating to catastrophic. The tornado threat situation is favorable for tornadoes. The potential impacts with that are significant. But if we go up kind of into parts of South Carolina here, we can see that, I guess it still just says significant. But again, I imagine that the tornado threat will be pretty intense there for parts of the East Coast. But anyway, we're gonna keep talking here, Mr. Storm, while I kind of catch my breath. You got anything else you want to just add?
Yeah, so I'd like to go over the wind threat and the... So, wind threat, obviously, you're going to have sustained winds of 130 miles per hour, alright? That is going to lead to debris-filled winds. So, what that means is that if you look at videos of inside hurricane eye walls, you will see just roofs of houses being basically like pulled up and into the winds, and they'll be thrown across the street. I think that's going to be a common scene for houses and homes and just businesses inside of this eye wall. I think these winds are certainly going to be strong enough to rip apart these roofs, and the storm surge and the winds just combining together is going to make travel impossible. So the fact that you're going to have one choice, which is to stay in place for the whole hurricane if you don't leave, just pretty much increases your chances of not making it out. So that's why it is so important to evacuate with the system, because it is unsurvivable in the worst of these conditions, and that northern eye wall looks like it's going to be the strongest part of the storm. So you're going to get the brunt hit for the first half of the storm. So when you get that eye wall, it's going to come in and it's going to pack a punch. So this is just a storm that you cannot mess around with. And I'm worried for storm chasers too. I think this could definitely be a dangerous storm for storm chasers. And you don't usually say that a lot, but I genuinely do think that that is certainly something to put in consideration. So, I think it was the right move to put in those storm surge warnings, or 15 to 20 foot storm surge, and then with the tornado threat for the system, uh, I think that if we see development of the system, a little bit more precise, and we see the formation of outer bands, and those outer bands get stronger, obviously that's going to definitely raise the threat for tornadoes. And so I would say really just after landfall, we're going to start to see that tornado threat ramp up as we see those outer bands come ashore. I think we're going to see a lot of spin ups, and some of the spin ups could definitely be strong, as we do have a 10% risk for tornadoes. I did briefly look at the NAM and the HRRR for significant tornado parameters, and both of them maxed out the scale. They're showing significant tornado parameter values above 10, which you rarely see on events that aren't severe weather and tornado outbreaks. So that's what kind of just makes the system so dangerous. And SRH values are also very high, noted by the NAM and the HRRR. So that's just a huge concern that I have for the system, and just really depends on how strong it gets, because obviously you're just gonna need, all you're gonna need is just a stronger storm, more organized, to get those stronger and more defined outer bands. And if you get the defined outer bands, that's really going to increase that tornado threat, and that's where you can get a really bad situation even outside of the hurricane force winds.
Yeah, you pretty much covered everything there. That was great, thank you. But I wanted to quickly bring this up. All right, I want to re-emphasize why we don't use NATOcast for hurricane events. Look at this. Again, this is not going to happen. This is ridiculous. This is NATOcast. This is not the Storm Prediction Center. They already have, if this was the SPC, this would be a high risk, driven by tornadoes. 30% chance of a tornado within 25 miles of any given point for parts of South Carolina and Georgia. That is ridiculous. Again, the Storm Prediction Center has it at a 10%. NATOcast is going all the way to 30%. Again, that's why we don't use NATOcast for tropical systems like this. It really, really is not good. So again, anything you see about that NATOcast outlook, I'm sure there's going to be a lot of news about that, because that doesn't happen very often. Just ignore it, honestly. Again, only listen to what the Storm Prediction Center thinks about the tornado threat for this point in time. Not NATOcast. Again, that is fully driven by AI. It doesn't have the human input in it. So, anyway, again, we have got ourselves a busy couple of days. So tomorrow, I want to kind of go over our plan for tomorrow. I will be live for landfall. Yes, I have confirmed it. Luckily, this is making landfall on a Thursday. Thursdays are like the only days of the week that I have entirely free. I have literally nothing to do. So that is good. That is actually very good. But if we go over to the models here, all right, the GFS. Again, the GFS is saying that this is going to make a landfall tomorrow night. All right, tomorrow evening. We've got this making landfall from the GFS. Actually, I should correct myself. Okay, no, I was right. Okay. It has this making landfall at about 8 or 9 p.m. tomorrow, or maybe even 6 or 7 p.m. Central. Eyewall makes landfall in the Big Bend there again. That would be a huge, huge deal. And then again, we'll also be live for the tornado threat across parts of Georgia and South Carolina. Again, we're going to be covering pretty much everything. It is going to be a huge, huge, huge day for streaming tomorrow. Again, we do have this random tornado warning in West Virginia right now, by the way. We have had a rotating storm up here for quite a while, honestly, and it actually does have some decent rotation, but for right now, it's pretty chill. So, again, we are going to continue to watch that over the next little bit, but I just want to quickly bring that up. So, again, we've kind of talked about pretty much all the impacts at this point, but if we go over to tropical tidbits here, let me bring something up. This is the model intensity guidance. Look at this. So we got a few of our little stringy things here. In layman's terms, stringy things. Poking this into a low to mid-range Category 4 hurricane at landfall. Again, you can see it weaken super rapidly. That's whenever it hits land. That would be bad. I mean, no duh, but that would be bad. But I'm a little surprised we don't have a couple of them pushing this even worse. I don't think it's going to be worse than a mid-range Cat 4, but usually we have some that say it's going to be a lot stronger than it ends up being, and some saying it's going to be a lot weaker. We have a lot saying it's going to be a lot weaker. We don't have a lot saying it's going to be a lot stronger. Again, I think mid-range Cat 4 is likely, so kind of surprised there's none of the members here pushing above that point, but some of these are just ridiculous. I mean, look at this. Some of them are only bringing this to a mid-range Category 1, which it already is. They're saying it's not going to strengthen anymore. That's just ridiculous. Again, low to mid-range Cat 4 there on the intensity guidance. If we look at the GFS ensembles here, again, we can see all of them at this point are pushing this into the Big Bend of Florida. Again, curving straight up through Georgia. Most of them still keeping this as a hurricane through most of the state of Georgia, into Tennessee, into Kentucky, and then there's a little bit of a mess in here. It is expected to stall out across parts of the mid-Mississippi River because of the Fujiwara effect. And again, some of these actually have this curving eastward too. That would be pretty interesting. It's kind of funny whenever you're still several days out and you can look at this. They have this going all over the place here again. We don't really know what's going to happen after this, goes through Georgia. We know it's going to go through most of the state of Georgia. That's kind of the latest that we can guarantee right now. We can't really guarantee anything after that, but anyway, let me know where y'all are watching from. Again, if you have any questions, leave them down below, please. It's the whole point of this stream. Again, the highest National Hurricane Center storm surge forecast ever for any hurricane is out in place, which is a big deal.
Yeah. I would like to touch once again on the size of this. We have tropical storm warnings all the way up in east coast of South Carolina. This thing is making a landfall on the panhandle of Florida. That is a gigantic wind field. I don't think I've ever seen a wind. I'm being brutally honest here. I don't think I've ever seen a wind field that large. That is so much confidence from the National Hurricane Center because this thing is still over 24 hours away from making landfall. So the fact that they already have tropical storm warnings that far away from the system is just pretty wild. But storm surge, catastrophic. The winds, devastating. You're going to get severe damage to buildings, businesses. Mobile homes will be destroyed. It's just really not looking good. Tallahassee, you guys got to get out of there. And remember, this thing is moving very, very quickly. So it's going to maintain hurricane strength, even pretty far inland. So that's why we saw that push of the hurricane warnings much farther north into Georgia. As of yesterday, we only had hurricane warnings pretty much just into the first few counties of southern Georgia. Now they're all the way up into central Georgia, approaching Atlanta. So I think that just the speed of the system and the size of it is a huge, reason of why we have hurricane conditions expected so far north. But everywhere along the west coast of Florida, we're expecting really, really intense storm surge. Obviously, the 15 to 20 feet is just incredible storm surge. And, all I got to say right now is that at this point, it just looks like we're going to have to hope that everyone is listening to us and that, just that things go as best as possible and that the storm, with its, intensification stays limited. But I don't think that's going to be the case. I think, honestly, with this storm, the sky's the limit. I think this could definitely end up being Category 5. It's possible. I don't want to spit out, misinformation to scare people and hype up this storm because it's potentially a Cat 5. I think it's definitely running out of time to be a Cat 5. I think, it's unlikely to be a Cat 5 at this point, but I think it's definitely possible still. But really all you gotta know if you're living in Florida right now is that, really, if you're in a hurricane warning right now, there's a pretty good chance that it'd be the best option to leave. So really, from Gainesville to Tallahassee, you guys really just need to pay close attention to the forecast, obviously. But a very devastating storm is certainly possible.
Yeah, so just to kind of recap everything that we've gone over so far. Again, we are talking about a major hurricane, without a doubt, making landfall, potentially a Category 4 or 5 hurricane. Again, this area has not seen anything like that, and it's been a while, it has. So we need to kind of recap everything. Again, We are talking about extremely significant, historic, catastrophic, potentially record breaking storm surge across portions of the Big Bend of Florida. Again, not trying to overhype this, make it sound like it's the end of the world. It's not, but for areas right up along the coast, again, you got to get out of there now. Again, it is, as Mr. Storm said several times, it is almost impossible to survive 20 feet of storm surge and 135 or 130 mile an hour sustained winds at the same time. You just can't do it, really. Again, that's another thing. The wind forecast is going to be very, very serious. Again, obviously, sustained winds 130 is pretty crazy on its own, but whenever we're talking about gusts even higher than that, we're talking about gusts over 150, 160 miles an hour. That is enough to do more than just, your standard hurricane damage like roof damage and ripping up trees. That is enough to cause serious damage. Again, those are easily strong tornado force winds there. So again, that is a very, very big deal. We do have a tornado warning now in effect for parts of the Florida Keys. This is the first of many tornado warnings associated with Hurricane Helene right now. So this, again, I believe this is the first tornado warning we've had from Helene. If you're in Bay Point or Perky, seek shelter immediately on the lowest floor of a sturdy building, away from windows and in an interior room. Again, we've had some tornado warnings in West Virginia today. We've had some tornado warnings in Georgia today, but none of them have been related to Hurricane Helene. So again, this is officially the first one. We are no longer really forecasting Helene. We are now casting, again, a possible water spout about to come onto shore here near Bay Point and Perky. Seek shelter immediately. Again, hopefully there's not too many people here. Hopefully, I guess this area probably didn't need to evacuate, but again, if you didn't evacuate and you are still in this area, make sure that you are seeking shelter. Again, that is a possible tornado / water spout right now on the ground. So again, I was talking about the biggest impacts here. Again, wind is going to be devastating. The storm surge will be historic. And again, we could be talking about a widespread tornado outbreak as well. We're talking about up to 30 inches of rain in some areas, which is just ridiculous. So again, please, please, please make sure that you are staying safe and evacuating. Listen to your local officials and everything like that. At this point, we need to focus on our tornado warnings here. And we just got another one as well. That puts us up to 3. We got the one in West Virginia. Actually, this is an extension for our storm in West Virginia. Again, this thing has been rotating for a while. Just because it's labeled as radar indicated doesn't mean it's not on the water, Kevin. It could be on the water, and we just don't know about it.
Yeah, I think both these storms look like they could definitely produce. But we should definitely start to get a much better view of maybe some of these outer bands of Helene in the next few hours from the radar on the outer banks of Florida. So we'll see what happens with that. But yeah, I mean, this is really looking like a dangerous situation.
Yeah. So again, I want to see this next velocity scan here. The reflectivity scan got skipped, but it looks like we did have a pretty impressive hook echo here. No, my radar scans are just being old.
Keep in mind, we may see catastrophic flooding or close to catastrophic flooding in portions of South Carolina and into high risk of flooding in that area. And I don't know if anybody's noticed, but there is a tiny speck, just a tiny speck of like a tiny area on the Weather Prediction Center's current forecast for rainfall of 20 to 30 inches.
Yeah, again, again, that would be extremely localized, obviously, but up to 30 inches could be a potential. But again, that's going to be nothing compared to the storm surge impacts, and again, obviously that'll still be a big deal, but again, the storm surge up to 20 feet, again, that has never been forecasted from the National Hurricane Center.
Yeah.
So.
Levi, I'd actually like to ask you a question. What are your personal thoughts on this storm? I'd like to hear from you.
Yeah, it'd be cool. Again, if anybody would like to share, really, make sure to do that.
Yeah, we'd like to hear what everyone's thinking about this. So, obviously, me and Davis have given both our personal thoughts on this storm, but I think the most important thing to do right now is just make sure that we can get the word out to as many people as we can, because, it's still pretty recent that we had this storm forecasted to be a Category 2 hurricane. Now this is all the way up to Category 4. That's a really, really big difference. So, any Floridians out there, this is not a storm that's just like a casual hurricane. Like, you guys have been through this before. This is like, you know, like nothing too crazy. This is bad. This is a historic hurricane. This is one that you are going to remember, and this is one that for certain areas you can't live. You can't live in without being safe. So you really just got to make sure that you are taking the storm seriously.
Again, there's so many people that, whenever they're under evacuation order, they stay behind. They think, oh, I've dealt with this 100 times. No, you haven't. Again, this is way more intense than your average hurricane. This is going to be a serious, major situation. So again, if you're under an evacuation order, you gotta get out.
Yeah, this is a storm that has potential to cause damage, like what Hurricane Ian caused, and obviously communities took a very long time to recover from Ian. They still are recovering from Ian, so this is just looking like a storm that's going to do a ton of damage to some of these communities.
Yeah, other than the landfall location, there's actually a lot of ways this is pretty comparable to Ian.
Yeah.
Obviously, this is a lot further north that we're expecting a landfall, but high-end Category 4 landfall is what Ian was. We could definitely see that. Again, catastrophic storm surge. Yeah, I think it could go high in Cat 4, and as Brandon Kopic said, there's a very, very small chance of last-minute intensification, maybe a low-end Category 5. Yeah, again, we can't completely rule something like that out. Again, this is a point in time where we have almost record-breaking SSTs in the Gulf, so...
Yeah, I mean, hurricane models still suggest that we're going to see a storm that could end up going under 940 millibars. So sub 940 would definitely be on the stronger side of things. That I think that would threat of seeing a Cat 5, but it doesn't matter. All that matters, once again, all that matters is that everybody that's going to be impacted by the system understands and knows the situation that they're going to be in, and final preparations should be done at this point.
For sure.
So really, if you're evacuating, you just gotta go like right now. This is honestly the last time you're gonna have.
Yeah. Again, a landfall tomorrow evening, but again, some of the worst of the impacts in terms of storm surge could be just before landfall. So again, you got to get out of there now.
Yes.
I don't know why my radars have been doing this, but yeah, they're like in the 880s. Some of the short-term forecasting models were. It was kind of wild.
Yeah, I think the NAM3 model had like an 870.
That is just ridiculous. Again, that would be again one of the strongest hurricanes ever.
Probably the strongest ever.
Yeah.
18Z GFS is coming in at this point, so we'll see what that's going to look like. So, quite interested to see. I think that if we see it, we're most likely going to see at least potentially a slight upgrade to the forecast in some way.
Yeah, I already brought that up, Kevin. This is the first tornado warning with Helene.
HWRF, if you, Davis, like you pull up again on Tropical Tidbits, look at the HWRF and then the simulated satellite. You can kind of get a look at what this storm could potentially look like near landfall. This thing literally looks gut-wrenching. This is the definition of a textbook hurricane. Look at it on Tropical Tidbits. It just looks insane. It literally looks like it just an absolute beast.
There's no way it gets down to 918 millibars, though.
Yeah, I think anything below 920, really anything, just whack.
Yeah, it even has it still in like the 970s into like parts of Illinois. That is just ridiculous.
Yeah, there's no way.
Yeah, I was talking about that, Kevin. I think that um this honestly could be a category 2 right now. I was actually talking to Mr. Storm. I figured at the new update here it would be a cat 2, but they're keeping it just barely at a high end category 1. Again, soon it will be a high end category 2. So that's a pretty big deal.
Yeah. Are you trying to pull up the simulated satellite?
Oh yeah, sorry.
That's good. In satellite. Alright. Check that out. Yeah, so satellite right now just basically shows that we have actually going on as threads the needle. Really cold cloud tops, high cloud tops in there. The core is really we're starting to see the formation of those outer bands. This storm is already looking monstrous, but I think that very shortly we're going to start to see that eye developing. Because it really looks to me like we have a very tight core. And actually, I did see a video of hurricane hunters flying into the technical eye of this storm, and there was actually blue sky and breaking in the clouds. So that's a big sign. And honestly, I mean, this is a 978 millibar hurricane, so to be honest, right now, I think that this is a Category 2 hurricane. There's really no doubt in my mind.
Yeah. So we have a new tornado warning first from West Virginia here for Hillsborough. Seek shelter immediately. This is still rotating. This has had like 4 separate tornado warnings. That's kind of crazy, but yeah, just get your safe spotting. And we haven't had any confirmed tornadoes yet, but you got the best time lapse of your life and you screwed up. Oh, that sucks.
Yeah, that's the worst feeling.
Dang.
Getting footage and then like it's the best footage, but something goes wrong.
Yeah, that Nashville storm looked pretty wild too.
I had a big thunderstorm earlier this year, and the lightning was super close and the thunder was super loud, and I realized that I never started recording.
Yes, there's a tornado warning in the Keys. And now there's not. Okay, so tornado warning has just been canceled for the Florida Keys. But yeah, I think we'll see an eye develop pretty darn soon here on the infrared.
Sam lives in Mitch West's neighborhood.
No, he says he's in it. He's not, he doesn't live there, I don't think.
Oh.
I can show it on stream? Alright, bet.
Levi, nice, time lapse.
So this is the time lapse he's talking about. Wow. That is like, that looks so trippy.
Yeah, that's pretty crazy. You can really see the updraft with that, though.
Yeah. You can also tell it gets decently windy as well.
Yeah. Nice little storm system. Or storm cell, I should say. Something like that.
You almost never see that in Dixie, yeah. That's for sure. We do have a marginal risk back into parts of the Pacific Northwest today. Got a severe thunderstorm warning for parts of Washington. We have to look at it from the Canada radar. Nothing too crazy.
AT&T GFS has a 959 mil. It's a tad farther to the east of the current National Hurricane Center forecast. So that would actually, in my opinion, decrease slightly the storm surge. But
But that's just one random run of the GFS, so you never know.
Yeah. So obviously, I mean, it really just looks pretty similar to the 12Z.
Yeah.
Can you bring up the simulated satellite?
Yeah.
Alright.
Is this the simulated satellite? I'm pretty stupid, so I don't know. is this or is
My
it
stream is.
or is this the infrared?
Are you on the HWRF?
No.
Go to forecast balls, and then just get to the HWRF, and then if you look at, I believe it's upper dynamics, there's an option for simulated IR4 satellite.
There we go. Let's say I really didn't know how to get to that.
Yeah, it's a really useful tool. I like looking at it.
That is crazy.
Yeah, so that's what we're talking about, and that eye is so. That's what this storm could look like. Which, I mean, I believe it.
That's insane. And again, because of that Fujiwara effect, it kind of just sits there over parts of western Kentucky and southern Illinois.
Yeah.
My eyes got dilated. Did they really? Or are you talking about the hurricane?
You know when Hurricane Helene is trending up, stuff is about to go down.
It's trying to what?
You know when Hurricane Helene is trending on X, you know stuff is about to go down.
Oh, yeah. Again, Tampa's, honestly, the biggest thing in Tampa would probably be the storm surge. Again, we're talking about 5 to 8 feet of storm surge, which is still a lot. It's already gotten most of the rain that it's going to see, but we could see a few more inches of rain in this area. We could see a couple of tornadoes. That may be the second biggest threat right behind the storm surge, and then gusts up to 75 miles an hour are possible.
Yeah. Oh gosh, dude. I don't really have anything else to say.
Yeah, I was kind of just thinking, if people don't really have any questions, we'll probably start to wrap things up here.
Yeah.
So.
Mitch is chasing this.
Yeah, I knew Ryan was live, Sam. Is Mitch West chasing this?
Yeah, he is.
Unfortunately, though, he's probably only going to be in, like, South Carolina. Is he going all the way down to Florida?
He did a live stream. I didn't tune in, but I know. Sure, I can find out. He went down to Florida for Ian, so hopefully.
It's possible. I mean, I just didn't. Usually, whenever he goes, chasing, it's usually right around his region there. And there's a decent tornado threat in his area, so I didn't know if he was just going to chase that or what. But I do actually, I remember I didn't watch him for Ian as it happened, but I do remember watching his Ian chase.
Oh, yeah.
Because wasn't that like his channel homepage video for a little bit?
It might have been, but now it's Hurricane Ida.
Oh, it's Ida, yeah. I always get mixed up with all the eyes.
Yeah. Yeah, I'll end up watching his stream back.
Which again, this time it's not an eye, believe it or not. This hurricane does not start with an eye, the one that's massive. It's gonna be an H.
Yeah.
Alrighty. So I think we're going to end off things here. If you guys did enjoy, please be sure to like and subscribe. Thank you all for tuning in. Again, we've had some pretty good engagement this stream. I think we hit 20 likes. I'm not too certain. Let me refresh things here. But, let's see. Again, I was kind of thinking this may be a little bit of a, you know, a low viewership stream since Ryan's live and a lot of other people are live, but we got some decent engagement. So again, thank you all for that, and I'll see you all in the next one. Peace.
Peace.